Helping Seniors Television, all about improving quality of life for seniors. If you're a senior, know a senior, or plan to be a senior, then this show is for you. It's all about helping you develop your own aging plan so you can age actively and with dignity. Helping Seniors Television from the Helping Seniors Network of information, education, and resources.
You've probably heard of Medicare Parts A, B, C, and D. So let's learn the parts of Medicare with Vicki Moore, Independent Medicare Specialist, on today's edition of Helping Seniors TV.
I'm Kerry Fink. Welcome to Helping Seniors Television. This is the TV arm of Helping Seniors of Brevard, the 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to educate, connect, and help seniors get a hold of the resources that are going to help them as they develop their own aging plan. On behalf of our president and founder, Joe Steckler, I'm Kerry Fink, and we're going to have an interesting conversation today with somebody that I consider a very credible expert on the topic of Medicare. It's Vicki Moore with the Integrity Insurance Group. How are you doing today, Vicki?
I'm doing great, Kerry. How are you?
I am good. You know, we were talking before the cameras were rolling about there's a time of year, they call it open enrollment period, where your mailbox just gets flooded from top to bottom with every kind of insurance offer for Medicare. And people start to pull these things out. Some names they recognize, some names they don't. And by the time you start trying to make some heads or tails sense of it, open enrollment period may have come and gone, number one. And then number two, most of us aren't even really equipped to understand Medicare coverage enough to know what we are supposed to do at that time. And I think that's one of the reasons why what you do is such a valuable benefit to seniors. It doesn't cost them anything out of pocket. And if you have somebody credible like yourself who's willing to take the time to look at a person's particular situations and guide them to a plan that makes sense. And that's one of the reasons, because you're able to work with a lot of different plans and programs. But before we get into any of that, I just want to kind of back up and talk about Medicare in general. I've seen so many times we get confused. Oh, yes, my mom is on Medicaid, my mom is on Medicare, but that's not even the same thing, are they?
No, they're two different entities. They can work together, but they're definitely two separate.
So Medicaid is the one that has like income limits and things like that. It's primarily for those of us that don't have enough to pay other things, right? Am I saying that?
Right, it's income based. And Medicaid is not just for seniors. I mean,
Okay.
Medicaid runs the full age gamut. So you can be a young person and qualify for Medicaid, as well as a senior and qualify for Medicaid.
So Medicare then is a different idea, right? Even though they both start with the same few letters, right?
Right. So Medicare was developed, I believe it was 1964. So it is a program for seniors. Typically, you think of. So when you turn 65, that's when you can qualify for Medicare. But you can also qualify at a younger age due to disability. So if you've been on disability for 2 years, Social Security disability, you're going to, after 2 years, you automatically qualify for Medicare as well.
Wow. So that doesn't help much for the average person trying to separate Medicare from Medicaid, except that mostly the mailings that the majority of us are probably getting at open enrollment period, that is specifically talking to us about what our Medicare options are. And that is the insurance component that we think that we're going to be dealing with when we turn 65. Am I saying that the right way?
Yes. The time period you're talking about is actually called the annual enrollment period, AEP, and that runs from October 15th through December 7th of each year. And so they call it pre-AEP, that October 1st through the 15th. And that's when agents or other, are allowed to start talking to people about the new plans. But yes, that's when people start to get inundated in their mailboxes with all of the different carriers and companies sending out all that information.
Now, there's a lot of stuff to consider because, first of all, I think you were explaining to me, and tell me if I have this wrong, but basically, unless you're on Medicaid, you actually do need to apply for Medicare as you're getting ready to turn 65. Am I saying that right?
Right. So you do want to notify Social Security that because it depends on the situation. Sometimes they do automatically send you out your card, your red, white, and blue card is what we like to call it, your Medicare card, and with your Part A and your Part B. If they send it out to you and you're not ready to take your Part B, you send it back and say, I'm not ready to take Part B. Sometimes they don't automatically send it out to you, and in that situation, then you definitely want to contact Social Security and let them know that you want to take Part B, and they will, Part A and Part B, and they will make sure they get you enrolled in it.
Right. So probably the best advice, if somebody's approaching their 65th birthday, they probably want to get this process or start thinking about this process. What would you say, 6 months, a year in advance? What's the timetable?
So you can't do anything. You've got to wait 3 months in advance.
Okay.
So you can't. You can definitely start thinking about it. You can start talking about people or talking to people to learn more about it. You can read your Medicare and You handbook. Whatever it takes for you to kind of feel knowledgeable about the process, but you can't actually request your Medicare card until 3 months prior.
All right, now let's try to break this apart because I get lost in the alphabet soup. We live, I love this analogy, we live on the Space Coast, so we should be used to acronyms, NASA and all these different acronyms that come up in the space program. But when I hear you start to talk about some of the different things in Medicare, I almost have to go slow down. It's like alphabet soup. We have Part A, we have Part B, we have Part C, we have Part D, and then you're mentioning stuff. But let's just go back to the basics. Most people, when they turn 65, we're concerned about Part A and Part B. What is that actually?
So Part A, if you've worked your 10 quarters throughout your lifetime, you have paid in to Social Security. And so you have earned, basically, you paid your Social Security taxes, so you've earned your Part A. So most people that have done that do not have a cost for Part A. Now, there are some people that have not, and they might be short a quarter or two. So then they would have to pay a portion of that.
Right.
Then Part B is automatic. You do have to pay for your Part B. So Part A is basically your hospitalization.
Okay.
Part B is basically your doctor visits and any kind of outpatient services.
Okay.
So to get Part B, you're going to pay for it. So for example, right now, and that can change from year to year, what they decide that Part B, what that costs. So currently for 2022, it's $170.10 per month if you fall into a typical range. Now you could pay less or you could pay more, and that's income based.
Right.
But many of the people I run across are right there in that middle range, and that's what their typical
And that's
cost
that
is.
amount that they actually take out of your Social Security check, right? So you have box 1, we're giving you this much money, box, I don't know, but then there's amount they take out. That's the amount you're talking about.
Right. So typically, and you can do it different ways, but oftentimes people choose to have it just deducted from their Social Security check each month. So if you decide, if you're turning 65 and you're going to be getting your Social Security check,
right,
then say it's $2,000 each month, and you're going to have that amount taken out. So you just see $170 less in your check.
Okay. So A and B, we said, is hospitals and then doctors. But even that, at that point, they're still that's only paying part of the cost, right? There's a deductible or a copayment, or I explain a little bit. This is where I think the average person, certainly for me, this is where we start to get lost.
Okay, so original Medicare. So when you get your red, white, and blue card and you have your Part A and your Part B, that gives you original Medicare.
Okay.
And like I said, Part A typically doesn't cost you anything per month. Part B does. But so that's gonna cover 80% of doctor visits, of hospitalization, of labs, or whatever that may be that you're, whatever you're using those services for. Durable medical equipment like, a wheelchair or crutches. But so you've got the extra 20% that is not covered. So that's where people get into other options.
So that's where this whole conversation starts about Medicare supplements. That's what they mean, something that helps you cover those gaps, right?
Exactly. It fills that gap.
Okay. But then as we keep going along, there's more to Medicare, right? Because I hear about Medicare C. Now, what does that mean? Is that where we get all this mail in from different groups that say we want to kind of wrap around Medicare and we'll help you? Or am I saying that in a right way?
Yeah, to an extent. I guess you could say it's a very competitive market. I mean, a lot of carriers out there are vying for potential customers. And then you've got, so they're marketing their plans to everybody, during that time, during that AEP time, that annual enrollment period. So that's when you are getting all of that mail and you're seeing all the advertisements, the radio spots, all of that, yes.
And so those guys are saying, we want to help you manage your Medicare, is basically what it is, and we're going to give you some benefits that will ideally help you to do that, and maybe ideally help you control some of your medical costs connected.
So if you stay with original Medicare, which, you run into people that just say, I just want original Medicare, I don't want anything else. So original Medicare, you could just opt to have your Part A and your Part B, and then you just fill in that, you just pay that 20% yourself, or it's also considered original Medicare if you choose to go with the Medicare supplement, or also that's known as a Medigap plan.
Okay.
So that is one option. The other is the Part C, like you just mentioned, the Medicare Advantage plan. And with those, it's kind of like, it is more like managed care. So if you went with, company A, for example, and I don't want to confuse us with more letters, but company A, they might say, okay, we're going to, this is what we're going to do. So they're going to give you extra benefits, like you might get dental benefits, or you might get vision benefits above and beyond or what you may get with original Medicare.
Right.
And other things that are really popular, like OTC, which is over-the-counter benefits.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was actually just talking to somebody the other day that was turning 65, and we were talking about all these different things, and I try to keep it as simple as possible. And she was like, oh, you make it sound, she's like, it can be so complicated. She goes, but you make it sound so easy, but I think sometimes I do get a little carried away with all the acronyms as well. So it's good to kind of maybe explain that a little bit as you go along.
So when we talk about like these kind of coverages, things that come in our mailbox, usually these are, am I saying this the right way? Like in the under 65 world, you could have like conventional insurance, but many people opt for either an HMO or a PPO kind of coverage. Does that concept exist when we get into Medicare?
Definitely. So when you decide, once you've made the decision that maybe you want to go with a plan C or Part C versus a supplement, then it's okay, which type do you want to go with, an HMO or do you want to go with a PPO? Those would be the two most common. So HMO means Health Maintenance Organization.
Okay.
PPO is Preferred Provider Organization. And in the under 65 world, those are very common. So a lot of people out there probably are very familiar with those acronyms and how they work. But they both have networks, but you have, HMOs typically have a more limited network. So if you go that route, if you've got certain doctors that are important to you, you want to make sure you're choosing a plan that has your doctors in that network.
Right.
Whereas with a PPO, maybe you really like that plan. Well, you have more flexibility oftentimes with PPO. You still have that network, but you've got the ability to leave that network if you need to. You're just going to have a higher copay when that happens. There's actually also an HMO POS, which you're seeing a lot more often.
Wow.
Which that means point of service. So you have HMOs out there that for certain things may let you go out of network. So it kind of gives you a little more flexibility with the HMOs. And the biggest benefit that people like with the HMOs is that they have they typically are going to give you more benefits, and you're going to have typically lower copays than you are going to find with your PPOs.
Okay. I want to explore that a little bit more, but I want to get to the other letter in the alphabet that I think is important as we're kind of doing this A to Z conversation, and that is Part D, because that has to do with our prescription drugs. Am I saying that right?
Yes, that's correct. And very important. We just had a question from the audience about that a little bit earlier today. So Part D, and it's interesting. There's times I meet people and they're like, oh, I don't care about Part D because I am healthy. I don't take any medications. But the thing is, you never know what your future is going to look like.
Right.
And so you always want to be prepared because there is actually a penalty down the road if you choose not to take a Part D when you qualify to take a Part D. So I always recommend definitely if you're ready to go with Medicare, if that's that time, definitely do Part D. And Part D typically with an Advantage plan it's kind of part of an Advantage plan. Well, there are some that it is not included, but for the most part, Part D is included, and so you do have your that's kind of part of your Medicare Advantage plan, and that's how you get your medications. Whereas if you were to have a supplement or what we call a Medigap, that's original Medicare. It does not include your Part D, so you have to purchase a separate Part D plan. So it can be a little bit confusing, but once you're in that world, I think it starts to make more sense for people.
Yeah, so let me bounce back because without going into names or anything a lot of times people see these commercials on national TV. It says, call 1-800, tell me your zip code, and let's give you all these benefits that you may not be getting. And I always kind of watch those with a wary eye because one of the things that I have learned, particularly from talking with you about some of maybe the right questions to even be asking is, there's a lot of nuances. Are you going to be in the same place all year? What is your specific drug situation? What is your specific need for doctors? Do you need doctors that you have been going to over a certain number of years? You have all these dynamics, and if you call this 800 line, they're going to just sell you something. Maybe it's right for you, but I would be a little bit concerned.
So definitely the point of all those postcards and all of those phone calls, and people do get phone calls, and all of those ads is to get you to, it's a sales tactic. They are trying to get you to enroll into their plan, and so they're going to give you all of the benefits. But the thing is, and they're enticing you to call for certain benefits, but that doesn't mean you qualify for those benefits, and oftentimes you don't. A lot of those benefits are for people that are dual eligible, which means they have Medicare and Medicaid, and oftentimes those plans have richer benefits. And but you have to be in that situation, and so when you call in, you may not qualify for that. And I know a lot of people get disappointed when they find out that they don't, but then they are still there trying to entice you to maybe switch plans. For whatever reason. So those are just kind of used oftentimes as enticements just to get you to call in and just get to talking about your plans.
And it seems to me that you would be much better off talking to somebody who's local, who knows the plans that are available in our area, because if there's an opportunity to put Medicare and Medicaid together, you're also able to help people work through options that might be available in that case as well, right?
Right. So I think it's definitely helpful to talk to somebody that's local to you, to find someone that you trust and that knows your area. Because so for example, I had a person that came to me and he was on a particular plan, and his doctor, he didn't know what doctor. He was new to the area, so he didn't know which doctor to choose, and they just assigned him a doctor. Right. Well, this doctor was, in our area, we were Beachside, we're Melbourne, we're Rockledge. They had him going clear across to Rockledge.
Wow.
And he was Beachside. So, it just wasn't, and he asked me for some advice on, finding a doctor closer by.
Right.
And when you're on the phone like that and you're not local, you just don't always know what the best options are. That's why it's there's many reasons why it can be much more helpful to choose somebody that knows the community, knows the doctors, and there's no one that's going to know every doctor because we live in a large community, but has just a better feel for the community and is familiar with the hospitals and things like that.
Well, and also the other aspect of this is the more I learn about the different things that seniors need assistance with, and I'm not talking about just as we're talking about Medicare, but I'm talking about just in general in the helping seniors of Brevard world. everybody's case is a unique case. You know, like we talk about, you know, our fingerprints, every person has a unique fingerprint, but I would also argue the same is true of an aging scenario. That's why our president and founder, Joe Steckler, also talks about you really have to make your own aging plan, because your goals, your objectives, your situation, your circumstances, all those things are going to be slightly different for everybody. So it's definitely not one size fits everybody. And what I was thinking to that point is that you really got to sit down with somebody you trust. We were talking about a number of the professionals who are connected to helping seniors are, number one, they're all very well vetted, you know, inside the Helping Seniors organization. But further too, it seems to be the kind of people that Helping Seniors attracts, who are people who are very serious about service to our seniors and making sure that we connect them to the right fit. And I hear what you're explaining just in the short time we have talking about Medicare. You know, this is very complex. This is not an area that you want to navigate off of an 800 number or off of a postcard in the mail. You really want to sit down with somebody and get the wisdom of, like, here's the drugs that I do have to pick up at the pharmacy every month. Here's the doctors that I regularly see. Just like you pointed out in the case, here's somebody who may not necessarily think they need prescriptions right now because everything's moving in the right direction, but everything we talk about in an aging plan is contemplating what might happen so that we're prepared to deal with it. Those are the kind of questions that you help navigate somebody through.
Right. And it's kind of interesting because I really do enjoy what I do, and I sort of, like you were saying, everybody is unique. Everyone's situation is very unique.
Yeah.
There's no right answer for every single person. And so I kind of look at it as solving a puzzle.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the aspect of what I enjoy, because, you know, somebody may come to me, they all have unique situations. You know, they may have a certain doctor that they just have to see, and they may not be in the plan that they thought that they wanted. So it's always, you know, looking at all of the different angles of a situation to figure out where is their best fit. And even like we were talking before the show, you were mentioning that you had talked to somebody recently who fits kind of, I would call it, whether you use the term or not, kind of like the snowbird. Hey, I'm in this part of the world for half a year, and then I'm going to be here. And so you have to be aware of those things, even if you say, well, if I get a certain kind of plan and my doctors now have to be in Florida, they may not suit you if you're going to be traveling a lot necessarily. I realize you get emergency coverage, but you have to look at all those things, don't you? Right, you definitely do, and that's the nice thing. I mean, like you mentioned, we've got AEP, that period, you know, in October through December. Then you have OEP, which is January through March 31st, where you can make changes if maybe you didn't make the right decision or something's changed. But then there's special enrollment periods throughout the year where you can make other changes. So things may change. Maybe you made a decision that wasn't going to be the best fit and you didn't realize it. Maybe you talked to one of those 800 numbers and wasn't the right fit for you. Or, you know, it could be all sorts of things. Right, and I even remember because circumstances change. Yeah, and you've talked about that you actually also have access to some 5-star plans, and what that I think means, you can correct me, is that these are plans that the public has voted for them are like the best plans, and because these companies achieve that level, then you're allowed to move people into them any time of the year. Am I saying that right? Yes, for the most part. So the Center for Medicare Services, Medicare and Medicaid Services, is the one that awards the 5-star, the star designations. So every plan has a star designation. Okay. So whether 5 being the highest, and in Brevard, in our area, Brevard County, we've got 2 plans, 2 carriers that have the 5-star designation. And that can change every year, right? It's not like a lifetime thing. It's based on the current year. Right. Okay. And as a matter of fact, I believe that both of the local plans, and I think I'm allowed to say, so it's Care Plus and Cigna, both have 5-star designations, and they both have had that designation for 4 years in a row. So that's a pretty nice accomplishment, but that allows them to have a special enrollment period. Right. So between December 8th and November 30th of each year, that gives that they have that special enrollment period where people can automatically go into those plans.
So that gives you another tool that you can move people into. So they should basically contact you at any time throughout the year. We're almost at the end of the time that we have. I want to make sure that I give an opportunity for listeners to get a way to get in touch with you, because I really think as you're hearing all the acronyms, all the alphabet soup, all the different ramifications, the very same reason you'd pick an elder law attorney, because you don't want to have to become a legal expert yourself. You want to trust the guidance that somebody knows what they're doing. Same reason you'd have a financial planner for the same argument, or you go to a tax professional because you want to make sure you get that correct and aren't doing anything incorrectly. It seems like it really makes sense to contact you, Vicki Moore. How do people get in touch with you?
Well, if they would like to get in touch with me, you can reach me at 321-272-0218. I'll just say that again, 321-272-0218. And my email is victoriam@medtig.com. That's medtig.com.
And I really think that I know you as a person, you're quite generous with your time to the extent that you can be and still maintain the schedule you need to. But really, I just encourage people to give you a call, because you'll take the time to hear out the situation and try to guide them as best you can within the tools. And one of the reasons that you become a great resource is because you have a lot of tools in your toolkit.
I do, and I will say that I sometimes lean in on helping seniors of Brevard's toolkit.
Yeah.
I've got clients that need other things besides Medicare help, and so I've definitely utilized helping seniors of Brevard's hotline as well. So
that's why we appreciate the opportunity to work together. So thanks for joining us today for Helping Seniors TV. I'm Kerry Fink. Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you, Kerry.
I'm Joe Steckler. Thank you for joining our program today. I'd like to remind you that our senior information line is available to you at 321-473-7770. There you can get help and direction that could be helpful for your specific situation or circumstances. The work of helping seniors is very important, but we can't do it alone. That is why our sponsors here in Brevard County are so important. I'd like to thank our many area sponsors, businesses, and medical providers who support the mission of helping seniors that help us carry the cost of our media efforts. If you'd like to join us either as a business partner or simply donate as an individual, we would welcome your call at 321-473-7770. You are always welcome to visit our website at www.helpingseniorsofbrevard.org. Thanks so much for your help. It does make a difference.